What's going on, everyone? Chris from Pickdawgz.com here with the breakdown. We're going to be breaking down 10 college football games for Week 3's action. It's going to be going down on Saturday, September 14th, 2024. If you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games that I love, including my daily $19 best bet, head on over to Pickdawgz.com and click the Premium Picks tab at the top of the page. We are back with another edition of the breakdown. We've had great weeks through the first 2 weeks of the breakdown, so hoping to keep that rolling here going into what for me is a really, really solid week 3 of action. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Let's get into today's and this week's college football action. Our first game takes us to Camp Randall for a matchup between the Wisconsin Badgers and the Alabama Crimson Tide. This one's going down at 12 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be seen on Fox. And, you know, the thing about Wisconsin is that this is a Wisconsin team that always seems to come into the year having, a ton of hope, a ton of potential. And, frankly, the results for the first couple games of the season haven't been all that impressive. Sure, they held Western Michigan and South Dakota to 14 and 13 points respectively, but they've only scored 27.5 points per game in those two. And now you welcome Alabama to town. And while that game against South Florida was probably a lot closer than the final score would have indicated, and Alabama still didn't cover that game, they are still the much better team here, in my opinion, with much better quarterback play. I like Jalen Milroe. I like this group of receivers for Alabama a heck of a lot more than I like what Wisconsin's bringing to the table. But I still think it's going to be a tough test on the road for Alabama. It may take them a little while to get going here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the under 49.5. I think that even if this game does become a bit of a blowout, I could see something like 31-14 Alabama in this game. Something where Alabama wins comfortably, but still comes in under the total. I can't trust Tyler Van Dyke in a spot like this. We've seen Tyler Van Dyke struggle against less. I think he's going to have issues getting it down the field against Alabama. I think this one's going to come in under the number. Next, we head to Tallahassee for a matchup between Florida State and Memphis. Florida State laying 6.5 in this one, total set at 53.5. It's going down at 12 Eastern on ESPN. And quite frankly, I'm done with DJU. I'm done with Florida State. This has been a disaster through the first 2 weeks of the season for the Seminoles. I think if you came into the season and said, hey, Florida State's going to start the year 0-2, if you were a Seminoles fan, you would be pulling your hair out. They've lost back-to-back games as double-digit favorites. They were 10-point favorites against Georgia Tech, 16.5-point favorites against Boston College, lost both those games. Now they're laying 6.5 against Memphis. I think this is a Memphis team with solid quarterback play in Seth Hennigan. I think this is a Memphis team that's never really been scared to go up against some of the big boys. And I think that they're live here, to be honest. I think that this is just a bad spot for Florida State. I'm just taking the now, I need to see it before I believe it approach with the Seminoles. Like I said, DJU just not the answer. And quite frankly, we are going to be running out of chances to fade DJU the rest of the year. So I'm still going to do it while I still have the chance. I'm going to take Memphis plus 6.5. I'm going to sprinkle on the money line as well, plus 215. Next, we head to Lubbock for a matchup between Texas Tech and North Texas. This one's going down at 12 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Texas Tech lane 10, total set at 69. I think it's high for a good reason, and that's why I like North Texas here. I think there's just a lot of variance in this game. The thing for me with Texas Tech is that they have solid pieces. They've got Baron Morton, who's getting more and more experience at the starting quarterback, rank, and he's been playing fairly well. Like I said, through the first 2 games, he threw for 378 yards in the opener, and then threw for 323 yards last week. But this is also a Texas Tech team that barely got by Abilene Christian in that opener. You could argue that the Wildcats should have probably won that game outright. And then last week, the Red Raiders were absolutely throttled by Washington State. And now they have to go up against a North Texas offense that loves to air it out. They're just outside the top 5 in passing attempts per game so far this season. North Texas 3rd in the country in passing yards per game. Completely different approach than what we've seen from North Texas in years past. But you're going against a Texas Tech defense, like I said, has been an absolute sieve this season. Would it be surprising if Texas Tech won this game? Maybe no for some, but I'm going to take North Texas here plus the 10 points. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on the money line at plus 315. I think North Texas is extremely live in this game. Like I said, Chandler Morris, the former TCU quarterback, he's thrown for over 700 yards in his first 2 games. Now, granted, South Alabama and Stephen F. Austin, not the toughest opponents, but like I said, I still think that there's just a lot of variance here that I think 10 points is a lot to give up in this game. So give me North Texas plus the 10 and on the money line at plus 315. Next, we head to Tulsa for a matchup between the Golden Hurricane and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. This one's going to be going down at 12 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Oklahoma State laying 17.5 points on the road in this one. And, I keep going back and forth on this one. At first glance, I was initially looking towards Oklahoma State because I'm like, Ollie Gordon has been solid. They've been running all over teams left, right, and center. But then you kind of go back and look, and it's just like, this is an Oklahoma State team that, won that opener 44-20 against South Dakota State. But they needed a lot to go right for them to beat Arkansas last week, 39-31 in overtime. And, they just need a lot of help. And I think this is just going to be a tough spot. I mean, Arkansas, put up almost 650 yards of offense on Oklahoma State in that game. Oklahoma State really struggled to run the football in that one. And even if Oklahoma State were to just come out and beat the brakes off of Tulsa here, I just think that Mike Gundy, when you look at his numbers and some of the recent results he's had in non-conference play, he doesn't stick it to teams in non-conference play. And I don't know if he'll do that here. I think laying 17.5, 18.5 is asking for a backdoor cover here. I think that Tulsa, good enough to be able to do some damage here. Sure, they lost to Arkansas State last week, but this is a Tulsa team that's got some great quarterback play. And I think they're good enough here. I think they can sneak in the back door. So I'm going to take Tulsa. I'm going to take the 17.5, 18.5 points, whatever you can get it at. Now we head to Missouri for a top 25 showdown between the Missouri Tigers and the Boston College Eagles. This one's going down at 12:45 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. Missouri laying a bundle, 15 points, but I don't think it's enough that you're laying here. I think we're getting them on the cheap, to be honest. Boston College, sure, this is a decent Boston College team that's had some solid results early on this season. And while, you can criticize Missouri in terms of who they've played up to this point, Murray State and Buffalo, I still think Boston College, while the win over Florida State was nice at the time, I still think it says more about where Florida State is as a program right now compared to where Boston College is. And Boston College comes out and blows out Duquesne, which moves the needle absolutely zero to me. But now you're playing a team with a pulse. You're playing a Missouri team that I am very high on this season. I like Luther Burden. I like Brady Cook. I like the pair of Sunbelt running backs that Missouri brought in. I think this is a Missouri team that you have to definitely keep an eye on. There's a reason that this early in the season, this Missouri team is ranked as highly as they are. I think Boston College is just a top 25 team in title alone. I don't think there's any substance to it. I'm going to go with Missouri in this one. I'm going to lay the big number. I'm surprised that this line is dropping. I have Missouri winning this one by at least 3 touchdowns. Now we head to the matchup between the Temple Owls and the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. This one's going down at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Coastal laying 19 points, total set at 52.5. Don't get me wrong, I am not the biggest Coastal Carolina fan in the world, but at a certain point, you kind of just got to have spots where you got to plug your nose and just do what needs to be done. And for me here, that's taking Coastal Carolina in this matchup. Temple is just absolutely atrocious. I mean, they got beat up by Oklahoma 51-3, came out against Navy, lost that game 38-11, and allowed Navy to run for over 5 yards per carry in that game. And like I said, they just actually almost 6 yards per carry in that game, and they just did a ton of damage on the ground against this Temple defense. Temple couldn't move the ball on the ground. They had to resort on moving it through the air. And while Temple could definitely put up some points, I just don't trust them to be able to hold down Coastal Carolina. It's a Coastal Carolina team that so far is top 10 in rushing through the first 2 games. They've averaged over 285 rushing yards per game in the first 2 games of the season. And, that plays just to the weakness of this Temple defense. I think Temple's going to get run over once again. I think this could be a team that could potentially go winless this season. I'm going to go Coastal Carolina and lay the big number in this one. Now we head to Corvallis for Civil War between the Oregon State Beavers and the Oregon Ducks. Oregon laying 16.5, total set at 50. This one's going off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And I think it goes to say, it goes without saying that Oregon, from a talent perspective, is the better team here. I mean, Dylan Gabriel's a fantastic quarterback. They've got a lot of talent. This is a great defense that Dan Lanning has in his ranks. But it's also concerning to me that, Oregon's had as much issues as they've had. I said it going into that Boise State game last week. I didn't think that the numbers were as indicative as any sort of struggles that Oregon would be having, where Dylan Gabriel throws for 380 yards on 41 of 49 passing, and the Ducks only beat Idaho by 10 points. But then last time out, Gabriel was extremely efficient again, 18 of 21, 2 touchdowns, 243 yards, but Oregon only beat Boise State by 3 points. That was Boise State team was really up to the task. And while Oregon State doesn't necessarily have the strongest quarterback play that they've had in recent years, Giovanni McCoy can move the ball on the ground. Oregon State's defense was solid against San Jose State on the road. And frankly, this is still a rivalry game. This is still two teams that don't like each other. Head to head, the home team has covered in each of the last 4 meetings between these two teams. Normally you see this game later in the year, but with the realignment, you're seeing it early on. And to me, I think it's a great time to get to Oregon State now so they can focus up and focus in on this game. So I'm going to take Oregon State here. I'm going to take the Beavers plus the 16.5 points. Now we head to Acrisure Stadium for this matchup between the Pitt Panthers and the West Virginia Mountaineers. The backyard brawl going down at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. West Virginia laying a point here, total set at 63.5, and I'm going with the over here. These are just two teams that I just do not trust defensively right now. You've got West Virginia who, have had, moments of brilliance with Garrett Green at quarterback. He's been able to move the ball up and down the field. And I think this is going to be a better effort from West Virginia than what we saw against Penn State. Penn State locked up the Mountaineers at home in that one, but West Virginia is still a solid team that was able to put up points in bunches on the road last year. I think against Pitt, they'll be able to do some damage here. This Pitt defense has been able to hold on enough to help this team get wins in the first 2 games of the season. But again, they had to rally to beat Cincinnati. They still gave up 24 points against one of the worst teams in the country and the worst team in the MAC in Kent State. On the other side, though, Pitt, I think they can move the ball with Eli Holstein as well. Holstein's been solid. He's thrown for at least 300 yards in each of his first 2 games. This is a Pitt offense, I said, that's rolling on all cylinders right now. And I've yet to really see West Virginia, slow anybody down here, and at least anybody of substance. So I'm going to go with the over 63.5 between Pitt and West Virginia and expect a exciting backyard brawl. Next, we have an in-state rivalry matchup between FAU and FIU. This one's going down at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN. FAU laying 4.5. Total set at 45. And, for some, this may be an ugly game, but for me, it kind of boils down to one of my principles this season, and that is just blindly fading Cam Fancher. Yet he did not look efficient against Michigan State, even though, FAU almost won that game. I think if you put any other quarterback in there, Florida Atlantic could have a good chance at winning that game. And then last week, 25 of 37 against Army, but they only were held to 7 points, FAU is. And this FAU offense just looks dead. And while FIU, they didn't look good against Indiana in the opener, the Panthers came out and fired on all cylinders against Central Michigan. They absolutely took the Chippewas behind the woodshed. Keon Jenkins was solid in that game. And for me, this just boils down to not wanting to lay 4.5 points with FAU in a game that I just do not feel they should be favored. And I think that FIU is live in this one. These in-state rivalry games can always be a little bit tricky. And while FAU has beaten up on FIU in the last few years, I think this could be a good revenge spot for FIU in this one. So I'm going to take FIU plus the 4.5, put a little bit on the money line as well at plus 165. And our final game that we're going to talk about on this week's breakdown is the matchup between Colorado State and Colorado. This one's going down at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Colorado 7-point road favorites here, total set at 57.5. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that some people criticize when we go against the Buffaloes in certain spots. We went out against them a lot last year. But for me, this game is no different. Even if Torrey Horton doesn't play, he is questionable right now. We're going to have to see if Coach Norvell has some news as we get closer to game time. But I mean, Horton said we should have killed Colorado last year. And they should have. They lost that game in overtime. Is this a different Colorado State team? Sure it is. But this is the same Colorado team, and I'm saying that in a good sense for Colorado and a bad sense for Colorado. Because sure, you still got Shedeur Sanders, and you still got Travis Hunter, but you still got an offense that can't run the football. And now you've got a bunch of locker room drama with Coach Prime calling out his team and throwing guys under the bus. And it's just, like I said, it's just not a good look for me with this Colorado Buffaloes team. You need to have a united front, especially going into a rivalry game. And if you don't have that, well, I don't know what you're going to have. And I'm really concerned about Colorado in this matchup. The Rams are still a stacked lineup, and I think that You know, the Rams, like I said, in a rivalry game, can compete here. I'm going to take Colorado State. I'm going to take the 7 points. Might sprinkle a little bit on the money line as well in this one to round things out. That's it. That's your college football breakdown for week 3. Appreciate each and every one of you for joining me for this video. Again, if you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell in the description of this video below so you get notified when the newest and freshest content drops here at Pick Dawgz. If you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at pickdawgz.com by clicking the Premium Picks tab at the top of the page, and make sure you check out our betting tools. They're the best betting tools in the business and tools that you want to make sure that you have in your back pocket when you're making your best bets for the day's action. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.